watching this. A great way to stay connected with us, which I'm doing right now. I've actually never done this. I've never used the QR code to open up our program before, so I just did that. It works. But if you want to, those of you who are in the room, if you want to follow along on our program, you can just scan that QR code, and everything does come up. It's great. It's got our lyrics on it, all the ways to connect. And also you can connect through our website, too. Also, if it's your first time, we'd love to have you use our Connect form and tell us a little bit about yourself. You can use that Connect form in another way, too. If there's something going on in your life and you'd love to have us praying for you, sometimes that's really helpful to know that the things that are going on in our lives, we're not just sitting through alone. We have somebody who's praying about it. You can fill that out on the Connect form, too. So that's a great spot to let us know what's going on in your life. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things that are going on this week, and then Steve's going to lead us in some worship, and then Sarah is speaking today. It's going to be pretty awesome. So, things that are coming up. We are going to do another common table. And you notice those that are in the room here, we've got actual tables everywhere here now. So we like the theme tables apparently because it's nice to gather around and be able to sit to put I like that you've all got your mugs on it. So with a common table, if you've never been a part of it before, what we do is there's somebody who opens up their home and hosts us so we can get together, have conversations around a table together and connect, which can be a little bit tricky because I don't know about you, but after the many times of a pandemic where we pulled out of community and we stopped some things, it still can be a little awkward for me to start a conversation with people or maybe even have a hard conversation with people. So I love the idea that we can sit around a table together, have something warm to drink, enjoy a good meal, and have conversation with each other because that's what really helps us grow and stay connected. So you'll see a place to RSVP because that's important for us to know how many people want to come and be a part of Common Table. Let's see. Oh, and also, if we are looking at our budget for the upcoming year, and just like lots of different organizations, there are some things that we're changing around in our budget. Everybody has been changing up some things financially, every organization. So if you would like to be a sustaining member of Neighborhood Church, we would love to have you do that. We do really appreciate your financial gifts here to help keep going the things that are happening here in this building and the work that we're doing as far as what we're teaching and what we are about actively as a community. And so you can fill out anything there on our website as well. But what I'd like to do is we always read a prayer together or a poem. And the generosity prayer for this week is rather short, but I'll read it to us. And so if you want to just take a deep breath before I read this. And Steve, you can come on up and start getting ready here. But this is the prayer. I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I woke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. I'm going to read that one more time. So I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. Right, and so before Steve comes up, I just encourage you, you can stay seated as you are, but worship really is that time for us to connect with each other, is to connect with divine God, and I hope you find joy today in that. So I'll turn it over to Steve.
So as usual, I'm going to play a couple songs here, and feel free to sing along, stand up, sit down. Up to you, how you want to engage. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. set afire. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul I can't contain, I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul I can't contain, can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul I can't contain, can't control. I want more of you, God. No place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. Here in your love, here in your love. There's no place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. Here in your love, here in your love. Set a fire down in my soul. Can't contain, can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul. Can't contain, can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more. There's no place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. Here in your love, here in your love. There's no place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. Here in your love, here in your love. Set a fire down in my soul. Can't contain, can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul. Can't contain, can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more. 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 I want more of you. I want more. I want more. There's no place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be. There's no place I would rather be than here in your love, here in your love. Amen. Thank you for joining me. Now I'm going to invite up Sarah.
Hello. How we doing? Good morning. I'm gonna sit per usual, cause we're just hanging out. Well, hi. If we haven't met, my name's Sarah, and I would love to meet you. We are in a series called Awakening to Happiness. I previously called it something else, but it was close. But I want to talk about awakening to happiness, but I also want to acknowledge that it's maybe a hard week to talk about that. There's there's been a lot going on this week. And I just want to say, before we move on, if you're having a hard time accessing happiness, that's okay. So I'm going to talk more about that later, but I just wanted to address it right away, that might be hard for some people. So a while back, I shared about joy and how joy is accepting exactly what's in front of you minus your opinion of it. And I don't think that that's an invitation to not think critically about anything, but it's an invitation to reframe the stories that we tell ourselves about the things that we experience. And that's an insanely summarized version of that message, but this is part 2 of that message. I think joy and happiness are very similar. They're not always the same, but I'm going to talk about them in conjunction with one another, and in conjunction with the idea or the experience of freedom, if that's all right. And if not, I don't have anything else to talk about, so good luck. Yep. So some of you might know this if you follow me on the social medias, but if not, I am in the process of recording and producing, releasing my first album, my first creative project of any kind that's being put into the world for people to buy with money, or stream for not a lot of money. But I want to talk about my experience of happiness in the midst of that, and how my identity is related to my experience of happiness and joy in the midst of that, if that's cool. Music has been a core part of my identity for my entire life. I have often said that music is my life, and that's meant different things in different seasons. But I would say the part that's been true for my whole life is that I feel most like myself when I am engaging with music. And I started singing the second I could talk, and I was always singing as a kid and also as an adult. But music has been so many things to me over the years. And as a kid, I did not know how to communicate my needs, and because of that, I couldn't communicate boundaries or discomfort in my experience of things without having a meltdown. And I understand why now, but at the time I didn't, and so I didn't understand my experience of the world as a kid. I think most kids don't, but I really didn't, because I just didn't have enough information. But music really quickly turned into this safe place for me. Music was something that I couldn't describe how or why, but I enjoyed it, and it made me feel good. It made me feel less alone. It made me feel like no matter what was going to happen, I was going to be okay, and that was such a gift to me. So I learned how to process my emotions through music. Usually that was just sitting alone, listening to like Celine Dion or Mariah Carey or Britney Spears or the Spice Girls or Beyonce. And my parents were surprised I became a feminist, but it was in the cards. But they were singing about things that were far beyond my comprehension level as a kid. I didn't understand what they were singing about, but I could feel what they were singing about, and as I sang with them, I could feel the emotion of it. And the emotion was the same. I could feel loneliness in a song. I could feel passion or devotion or fear or sadness. And I had a really hard time processing my emotions, and I still do, but music made it so much easier. So I did the very human thing by clinging to it with every fiber of my being and making it my life. It was the thing that felt good, so I'm going to do everything for this thing. Music was who I was. Music was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And there was, beyond that, there was this emptiness that music couldn't fill. And it took me a long time to learn that. That it was myself, my soul, my personhood needed to fill that, and I didn't know how to do that. So I went to college to get a degree in music so I could do music for the rest of my life. In my notes it says laughs in music degree because that's not what that means. It just means I have debt. Um, but when I was performing or recording music, it was like, because I had asked music to be my identity, every time I sang a flat note, I was crushed. My internal monologue was just how much of a piece of garbage I am. And that if music is my life and I can't do music well, then what value do I have? If this is the thing I'm supposed to be exceptional at and I can't do it exceptionally, then what is my worth? What is my value if I can't do this one thing that's my whole life well? So I stopped enjoying music as much. I made it something that it wasn't supposed to be. I was showing up to music asking, who am I? And I was showing up empty-handed asking, who am I? And music could offer me a lot of things, but it couldn't offer me who I am. Asking music to be my identity left me broken every time I wasn't incredible. Excuse me. I would show up to my time with music chasing feelings that I had spent years suppressing. And for the record, I think that this is really common. I think that a lot of people try to find their identity in the thing that brings them happiness. I think a lot of times trying to do that takes the happiness out of it. And I think people do this with their careers or relationships, their hobbies, their gods, their religions, their politics, their family. And those things aren't bad. Often they are part of who we are, but I don't think that they're designed to be the entirety of who we are. And so when we make them those things, they lose the value of what they actually are. So then I found worship music, and I suddenly found this new thing to be my identity, and it was just worshiping Jesus. So it was still music. I could show up to musical engagement and ask the question, who am I? And it was acceptable because I was just looking for Jesus. It's just the wind or a ghost. The door just opened. So welcome, whoever you are. But sorry, that was very distracting. I would show up to worship music and I would ask, who am I? And it was valid because I was looking for it from Jesus. And I would like say that's who I was, and it was a lot more acceptable because I was just a worshiper of Jesus. And that is a very, very well-received sentence in evangelical worlds, to say, like, my identity is a worshiper of Jesus. And no matter how well-received it was, and authentic in a lot of ways, trying to show up to worship without having a clue of who I was doesn't produce very authentic worship. Even if I could lead worship vulnerably, singing about the ways that, you picked a perfect song, singing about the ways that I felt so empty, and I felt like, Jesus, I need you to fill me up. The ways that I felt shame, the ways that I felt inadequate, there's beauty in that. And I think that, like, I approach those songs very differently now, whereas when I was showing up without a clue who I was. And I met a lot of worship leaders in my time in that world, and some of them truly had no idea who they were outside of being a worshiper of Jesus. And sometimes that's a really beautiful thing, and sometimes it's just people just don't know who they are outside of being a worshiper of Jesus. And I think that they will probably have a very rough time when that world crumbles, or that thing crumbles, because I had a very rough time when it crumbled. And my hope is that they would experience the freedom that I have. So much of the passion that I expressed in leading worship was this desperate desire to quiet the voices in my head that were always telling me I was not enough, that I wasn't playing the guitar well enough, or I wasn't playing keys well enough, or I wasn't singing well enough, or I wasn't engaging enough, I wasn't helping other people engage well enough, I wasn't listening to the Holy Spirit. And no matter how loud I led worship, people experienced that as passion, and that I was really engaged with God, but I was just desperate to know who I was. And it was just the internal experience was a very different experience than what other people saw. So I moved out to Colorado a couple years ago, and I took a break from leading worship for a while, and I tried to write all these songs, these worship songs in this secret place that were just for me and Jesus. And the more that I did that, the more I started writing songs that were about what was going on beneath the surface. I started writing about how misunderstood I felt, about how scared I was to be honest with the people in my life about who I was, my gender, my sexuality, my identity, and it was a very lonely season of my life. So there was a lot more silence than I was used to. But in that silence, I started to find who I actually was. And you guys have heard a lot of that story, or if you haven't, come talk to me, I'd love to tell you. So I want to fast forward a little bit, if that's cool. Over the last 2 years, we have all had a lot more opportunity to reflect and think about things. So over the last 2 years, I learned on a deeper level what it meant to find my identity in Christ. Something that I thought I had been doing for years, but learning to let go of all the things that other people thought I should be, and ask myself and ask the Spirit who I was and who I wanted to be and what that meant and how that changed things. And this year, 2021 has been one of the most dramatic years of my life, and it's been beautiful and difficult and everything in between. But this summer, my personal life kind of blew up in ways I didn't expect and anticipate, and these really crazy, intense things happened in this 1 week. And in that same week, my therapist experienced life-threatening injuries and needed to be hospitalized and could no longer do sessions with me. And I was just like, this is terrible timing. Like, I'm sorry that you're hospitalized, but this is horrible for me. Like, you couldn't have done that at a worse time, really. It's my favorite therapist I've ever had, so I was like, I don't want to find a new one. So I just had to find a new way to process things healthily. And very, very quickly, I turned to songwriting. And as I mentioned, I have a very hard time with emotions. And so when I was experiencing every single emotion at 100% intensity, I did not know what to do with that. I just was stuck for like 3 days, and then I started writing, and a past version of myself would have pretended those emotions didn't exist, shoved them to the side, suppressed them, pushed them down, just like blow forward and cut off every party involved and just do what I got to do to get through it. And I have learned in recent years that doesn't work as well as I think it does, and all of that stuff just comes up later, and it's way harder to deal with because it's been years, and it's a lot more messy, and there's been meanings made on top of it. And so I'm just learning to engage with emotions while they're here. It's a little bit easier in the long run. So I wanted to engage with my emotions while they were here as a way of honoring the experience and honoring myself and practicing embodiment in a way that I haven't before. Embodiment is just the practice of being in your body. And it is my most favorite and my least favorite thing in the world. A huge part of embodiment for me is feeling my emotions. So in a way that hasn't been true before, music and songwriting became a practice of embodiment. I think embodiment is deeply connected to each of our journeys, our journeys with finding ourselves, and because your body is a large part of who you are, and you don't exist without your body. So developing a relationship with it is important because it's developing a relationship with yourself. And that's not very common, and it's increasingly, I think people are realizing the need now, but in Western American culture, like, we're taught to view our bodies as machines, as this, our brain, this is who we are, and this is just the thing that carries us around, but I think that our body is part of who we are, and to honor that means to practice embodiment. So because it's important to me, and because I've been talking about intense things, let's practice really quick some embodiment. So wherever you are, just check in with your body. Take some nice deep breaths and pay attention to the sensations that you feel in your body in this moment. So some of you might feel tension in your jaw or your shoulders or your chest. Some of you might feel tired, like your body hasn't woken up yet. Some of you might feel your heart racing, or you become aware of pain. And there's no right or wrong thing to feel in this moment. Just pay attention to what is and let it pass with the moment. As an Enneagram 5, I tend to think my emotions. But one of the most useful tools I've learned is to feel my emotions means to pay attention to my body. My body is constantly speaking to me about what's happening in the world around me and my experience of it, and getting in touch with my emotions means getting in touch with what my body is communicating to me. So I'm going to practice. Right now, I think my face is warm because I'm in front of a lot of people talking. There's like a tightness in my chest. I would describe that as anxiety. But that's what I become aware of as I'm sitting here. So my face feels warm, and I think it's just nervousness, right? It's pretty normal. I don't want anyone to feel alone in their experience of embodiment. Like, is this the right thing? Should I feel this? Whatever is there is worth paying attention to. So you can come back to the room if you haven't already. But a few weeks ago, I drove out to Colorado to record my album. And leading up to it, I had a ton of anxiety about what the experience was going to be like for me internally. Because, like I said, every time I've done performance or recording or an externalization of a creative project, my internal experience has been very unkind and, to be honest, pretty abusive. And like one flat note would just crush me for a week. And as we were recording a couple weeks ago, my experience was just a world different. I noticed myself being patient and gentle and kind to myself if I screwed up or I needed to do multiple takes on something, or I found myself actively practicing embodiment, bless you, as I sang these deeply emotional songs and made decisions about the production or how I wanted it to feel to the listener. That was such a cool part of the production process, that it's not only an invitation to embodiment for me, but a practice of shared embodiment. That I would be able to embody these emotions in such a way that when you listen to it, you experience the emotion in a way that makes sense to your experience. And it's what Celine and Britney and Mariah and Beyonce were doing all those years ago. And I'm not one to compare myself to any of those people, but I think they were embodying an emotion that they experienced. And as a child, I was learning how to feel emotions through their practice of embodiment. And so as a kid, the only thing that I wanted to do was be a singer. That was all I wanted. And I couldn't have communicated why, but there was just this thing that was captivating to me about their practice of embodiment. And now I feel so honored to share that method of storytelling, to engage with embodiment through this creative process. And it makes sense to me logically why I chased that as a child. That experience would be something I asked to become my identity. But the beautiful part is, now that I've done the work of figuring out who I am outside of other people's narratives, outside of other people's expectations, systemic narratives, and my ego's narratives, that I got to approach music from that place and not show up saying, like, who am I? I got to show up to music approaching, like, knowing who I was and asking it to be just an active embodiment. And I just got to approach music and ask it to be present with me in these really big emotions. And because of that, I got to experience a level of happiness and joy and freedom that I have never experienced with music before. It like flourished before me because I wasn't asking it to be something that it's not. I let the embodiment of these emotions, and let it be the embodiment of these emotions, and that's all it needed to be. I let it be an expression of my human experience, and that's all it needed to be. So I just spent a really long time talking about myself and my experience of music, but my question for all of you is, what is the thing that you are trying to get identity from that wasn't designed to give you identity? And what does it have to offer you? What is it trying to offer you? Is it your career? Is it music? Is it writing or art? Is it a relationship or a friendship or a relative? I think as humans we try to find identity in everything that we experience, everything we engage with, and that's normal and that's not bad. But I think when we ask things to be something they're not, we tend to create our own suffering. And we create a narrative for something that isn't based in truth or reality. So what would happen if you approached your career or your relationship and asked not, like, who am I, but who are you? What if we approached even the creative experience from a place of curiosity and compassion and wonder and embodiment instead of rigidity and expectations and shame? I cannot and I will not tell you who you are in this moment or any moment, but I can tell you that you are worthy of love and embodiment and presence and compassion, and especially from yourself. I can tell you that from my experience, approaching things that you love from a place of love and self-love makes those things 1,000,000% more enjoyable. And I know I talk a lot about presence and meditation and paying attention to the narratives we tell ourselves, but that's because it works. And I truly believe that you can access happiness simply by getting present, and that's a hard conversation to have this week, right? Chris talked last week about the kind of community that we want to be, and that we want to be a community of allyship and anti-racism and support and authenticity and respite and safety. And this week we saw a blatant display of white supremacy in our legal system, and I had a very hard time accessing happiness. And I will not ignore those feelings. The feelings of anger at the injustice, feelings of grief and true despair. I will get present to them, and I will speak up and show up for Black folks until we see actual equality exist in this country. And I will show up here and grieve and weep with all of you as we figure out how to go back out and do the work together. But suppressing those emotions, those feelings of discomfort, does not allow us to access happiness any easier. You can't access true happiness by creating a different version of reality in your head. Pretending things are anything other than what they are will always lead to suffering. I believe that you can only access true joy and true embodiment by getting present to and approaching every moment with loving kindness. So I'm just going to leave some space at the end here. I'm just going to ask us some reflective questions. And as always, your job is just to get present to your body, present to maybe some things came up as I was talking. And yeah, all I ask is you be honest with yourself, but in doing so, extend yourself kindness and patience and compassion and love. And I'll end us in prayer, and then we can head out or stay and chat or do whatever you feel up to. Does that sound good? Great. How are we feeling? See some nods. Great. How are we doing, internet? All right, so take a couple nice deep breaths in your own space, in your own time. And just try to get present to what you feel in your body. What sensations in your body are you getting present to? You can just answer to yourself. And again, there's no right or wrong. Just notice what's there and let it pass. Is there something in your life that you're asking to be something that it's not? Is there someone in your life that you're asking to be someone they're not? Who would you be if the things you identify with slipped away? Who would you be if you accepted things as they are presently? And as you ponder these questions, are there any changes to the sensations in your body? What is true in this moment? Whatever is true, breathe into it and let it pass. So I'm going to leave us with a prayer from Ephesians, but take some nice deep breaths and in your own time come back to the room or move on with your day from home. May Christ dwell in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may have strength to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth and length and height and depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with the fullness of God. Amen. Hey, thanks for being here this morning and braving the treacherous wind. Thanks for watching online. We're going to take off. Thanks, guys.